Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Midtown Scholar Bookstore's virtual event series. My name is Alex Brubaker. I'm the manager here at the Scholar, and as always, I am live in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania at the bookstore. Whether you're joining us on Crowdcast or Facebook Live or even YouTube Live, I hope you're safe, hope you're hanging in there, hope you're ready to hear from some two incredible poets tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in. If this is your first time with us, or maybe you've been to a couple of these, welcome to our live stream series. We absolutely love hosting these events. Even though we can't be with you all in person, it's really nice to connect virtually here and try to offer some semblance of human connection with everyone to keep the conversation going about literature and books and why they matter. If you haven't yet purchased Victoria or Monica's new books, I'd like to encourage you to do so. Purchasing their books through us helps support the authors, our staff, and of course, you get a great book. At this time, we're offering free media mail shipping in the US to make the price more reasonable. So if you click the green button below, it's just right below my face, it will direct you to our website to purchase a new copy of their books. If you're watching this through Facebook Live or YouTube Live, look in the comments section and you should see we've provided a link there as well, or simply head to midtownscholar.com. And thank you for your support. Now this evening, we are very honored to welcome poets Victoria Chang and Monica Sok to virtual Harrisburg. Victoria Chang's books include Obit, Barbie Chang, The Boss, Salvania Molesta, and Circle. Her children's picture book, Is Mommy, was named a New York Times notable book. She has received a Guggenheim Fellowship, a Sustainable Arts Foundation Award, a Pushcart Prize, and a MacDowell Colony Fellowship. She lives in Los Angeles and is the program chair of Antioch's Low Residency MFA program. Victoria's new collection that we are here for this evening is titled Obit. Here it is, and is available if you click the link below, or there's a link in the group chat. Monica Sok is a Cambodian American and the daughter of former refugees. Her work has been recognized with the Discovery Prize from the 96th Street Y Unterberg Poetry Center. She has received fellowships from Hedgebrook, the Elizabeth George Foundation, the National Endowment for the Arts, the Jerome Foundation, the MacDowell Colony, and others. Currently, Sok is a 2018 to 2020 Wallace Stegner Fellow at Stanford University and also teaches poetry at the Center for Empowering Refugees and Immigrants in Oakland, California. She is originally from, wait for it, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, my hometown as well, so very exciting for me. Monica's debut collection that we are here for this evening is titled A Nail the Evening Hangs On, again available at the link below or in the group chat. So how tonight's going to work. Victoria and Monica are going to each talk a little bit about and read from their new collections, and after they read, we're going to go to an audience Q&A. So what I need from everyone out there is to think about a question you might want to ask Victoria and Monica, and then use the Ask a Question button down below. Again, it's below my face. And we'll get to as many questions as possible after the reading. But without further ado, I'd like to welcome onto the screen first, Victoria Chang.
Thank you. Oh, okay. It's like looking in a mirror. It's the worst part of reading online. Okay. So thanks everyone for coming. I wanted to thank Midtown Scholar, Alex, and everyone who helped make this happen. I know that bookstores are struggling right now, so thanks for all your hard work and courage and adaptability. Thanks to Monica Sok. It's an honor to read with you. We were actually trying to read offline together, so that didn't work out. So this is a great alternative. I'm just going to read a few poems from this book that came out maybe a couple weeks ago. So I'm going to give you a quick intro to the book. It's called Obit, and my mom passed away in 2015 of pulmonary fibrosis, and that's when your lungs sort of harden up and you suffocate slowly to death. It's not a pleasant disease. My dad had a stroke maybe 12 years ago and suffers from aphasia and has had a lot of other brain issues and things like that since then. And so the book just has a lot of them inside of it, because for better or for worse, that's been my life. I didn't want to write elegies for my mom when she passed. And then I heard on NPR this documentary that was made called Obit, and there was just something just lovely and pleasant about that word obit with that long O and hard T. I went home and spent 2 weeks and just kind of in a flurry wrote these obituaries where everything dies, which is what I noticed in my life. So they kind of look like little newspaper thingamabobs. I'll just read a few of these. This one's called Memory. Memory died August 3rd, 2015. The death was not sudden, but slowly over a decade. I wonder if, when people die, they hear a bell, or if they taste something sweet, or if they feel a knife cutting them in half, dragging through the flesh like sheet cake. The caretaker who witnessed my mother's death quit. She holds the memory and images, and now they are gone. For the rest of her life, the memories are hers. She said my mother couldn't breathe, then took her last breath 20 seconds later. The way I have imagined a kiss with many men I have never kissed. My memory of my mother's death can't be a memory, but is an imagination. Each time the wind blows, leaves unfurl a little differently. This one is called Friendships. Friendships died June 24th, 2009, once beloved, but not consistently beloved. The mirror won the battle. I am now imprisoned in the mirror, all my selves spread out like a deck of cards. It's true, the grieving speak a different language. I am separated from my friends by gauze. I will drive myself to my own house for the party. I will make small talk with myself, spill a drink on myself. When it's over, I'll drive myself back to my own house. My conversations with other parents about children pass me on the way up the staircase and repeat on the way down. Before my mother's death, I sat anywhere. Now I look for the image of the empty chair near the image of the empty table. An image is a kind of distance. An image of me sits down. Depression is a glove over the heart. Depression is an image of a glove over the image of a heart. This one is called My Mother's Teeth. My mother's teeth died twice, once in 1965, all pulled out from gum disease, once again on August 3rd, 2015. The fake teeth sit in a box in the garage. When she died, I touched them, smelled them, thought I heard a whimper. I shoved the teeth into my mouth. But having two sets of teeth only made me hungrier. When my mother died, I saw myself in the mirror, her words around my mouth like powder from a donut. Her last words were in English. She asked for a Sprite. I wonder whether her last thought was in Chinese. I wonder what her last thought was. I used to think that a dead person's words die with them. Now I know that they scatter, looking for meaning to attach to like a scent. My mother used to collect orange blossoms in a small, shallow bowl. I passed the tree each spring. I always knew that grief was something I could smell, but I didn't know that it's not actually a noun, but a verb, that it moves. So I just wrote a whole bunch of these, and there are probably about 70 or so, maybe more of these, and then just kind of stopped. I'm not sure why I just stopped. I think I just didn't want to write anymore. And then I started working on formal poems just for practice and fun, and I was writing sestinas, various other kinds of poems. I can't even remember, sonnets. I was just doing all of it, and I started writing these tankas, which are these Japanese syllabic poems. So they're 31 syllables and 5 lines, 5, 7, 5, 7, 7. And I started writing them towards like just my children, but also children in general. So I'll just read a few of these, and they come in pairs. So I'll read 4 total. I tell my children that hope is like a blue skirt. It can twirl and twirl, that men like to open it, take it apart, and wound it. I tell my children that sometimes I too can hope, that sometimes nothing moves but my love for someone and the light from the dead star. I'll read 2 more of these. Do you see the tree? Its secrets grow as lemons. Sometimes I pretend I love my children more than words. No one knows this but words. My children, children, today my hands are dreaming as they touch your hair. Your hair turns into winter. When I die, your hair will snow. And then I'll read maybe 2 more of these obits, and then I'll turn it over to Monica. See which one should I read? Okay, I'll read these 2. This one's called Grief. Grief, as I knew it, died many times. It died trying to reunite with other lesser deaths. Each morning, I lay out my children's clothing to cover their grief. The grief remains, but is changed by what it is covered with. A picture of oblivion is not the same as oblivion. My grief is not the same as my pain. My mother was a mathematician, so I tried to calculate my grief. My father was an engineer, so I tried to build a box around my grief, along with a small wooden bed that grief could lie down on. The texts kept interrupting my grief, forcing me to speak about nothing. If you cut out a rectangle of a perfectly blue sky, no clouds, no wind, no birds, frame it with a blue frame, place it face up on the floor of an empty museum with an open atrium to the sky, that is grief. And then the last poem I'll read is this one. I wasn't timing myself, so I hope I didn't read too long or too short. The Blue Dress. The blue dress died on August 6, 2015, along with the little blue flowers, all silent. Once the petals looked up, now small pieces of dust. I wonder whether they burned the dress or just the body. I wonder who lifted her up into the fire. I wonder if her hair brushed his cheek before it grew into a bonfire. I wonder what sound the body made as it burned. They dyed her hair for the funeral, too black. She looked like a comic character. I waited for the next comic panel to see the speech bubble and what she might say. But her words never came, and we were left with the stillness of blown glass, the irreversibility of rain, and millions of little blue flowers. Imagination is having to live in a dead person's future. Grief is wearing a dead person's dress forever. Thank you.
Victoria, your poems are just gutted me. I loved them and really connected with them during this time. So hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Alex, and for everyone at Midtown Scholar. Thank you for organizing this series. It's really wonderful to stay connected in this way. I'm going to just go in ahead read some poems for you. So this poem talks about my grandmother's loom. My grandmother was a weaver. I come from a family of Cambodian refugees. And so this reading is actually very special because I've never read in front of an audience in Lancaster or in Harrisburg. So I really appreciate those of you who are present from those areas. My grandmother and my mom's side of the family had resettled as refugees in Harrisburg. And so my parents live in Lancaster. So I'm going to go ahead and read. This poem is called Ode to the Loom. Dear Loom, dear box skeleton, special ordered and handcrafted from wood, you rest on the floor and wait for her to sit down with you and together weave fabrics for weddings between lovers and warriors, the survivors, surviving. Your sturdy frame animates her as living portrait, simple as the chain on her glasses, the calm focus, steady hands on the shuttle, the weft and the warp, feet on the treadle. You obey the soft sheen of turquoise, cherry, and gold, wrapped at the body's waist, your gift to the body, hundreds of bodies for the new year, for the blessings of ancestors. Sweet Loom, old friend of an old woman, You are an ancestor she prays to, so that when her hair falls, not as rain does, but as nails the evening hangs on, and her hands slip no longer from silk, but on walls in the dark hall to her room, her daughters will sadly dismantle you, remnants of a lost home, sacred language coded inside her native language. When she passes, you will be stowed away in the basement. You will remind us of her, you, Loom, who have kept her company, non-judgmental witness to her secrets. You'll remember best the way she works, the spots on her legs, her bare toes peeking from the edge of her sarong, the slow motion of her hand slapping flies in summertime, or the sound of gorges rushed from her face in the quiet hours of the cloth when she was depressed. She was depressed. She pressed against you daily and wept. So my book is dedicated to my grandmother, who was a weaver. And I would watch her all the time, sitting at her loom. And, you know, I'm so honored that I got to witness my grandmother as an artist. So she's very special to me. And the poem, Ode to the Loom, is the last poem that I had written for the book. And the process is also special to me too, because the late Evan Boland also helped me revise this poem and edit this poem. It was the very first poem I ever showed her. So yeah, I just wanted to bring her into this space as well. So I took time writing this book. In 2016, I went to Cambodia and had done some research and just had a lot of incredibly illuminating experiences. And this is a poem that came from that time. This poem is called Self-Portrait in Siem Reap. The French chef says, "Try the foie gras, it's very good." So I treat myself to the liver of a force-fed goose. Give it to me on a crostini with black currant. In America, I don't get to do this sort of rich people thing. The waiter tells me he was a translator for Angelina Jolie, saw her roll up her skirt and walk into a river. Oh my gosh, he says, she didn't have to do that. Cars zoom across from me, motorbikes too. Caked up dust coats my food, my face. The family next door having dinner at their shop. They wonder at me sitting so fancy on a restaurant patio, alone, and if I'll be okay. Am I enjoying my foreign food across from the bar where locals play pool? Actually, they want to know if I'm Khmer or not. My table covered in white, fine dining in Siem Reap. Look at me get up when the waiter comes out with water. I'm heading for the bathroom past the chef. Are you okay? Vomiting on my shoes before I reach the toilet. The steak is rare. Was it the pollution? Will you write a good review? It was a foie gras, Pierre. Shut up. I'd rather help an orphan girl carrying her sister. At least she lied to me on Pub Street. I don't want money. I don't want money. I want powdered milk. The death of Pol Pot. 1. My mother shoos us away, but I listen by the door. There are rumors of a black snake in the basement. It is 1998. The adults watch the news upstairs. On the screen, an old man is dying in his bed. The adults are talking loudly, 2 feet away from each other. From their voices, I can tell their hatred for that old man, a thin blanket to his chin. 2. I crawl out of a giant steaming pot, snickering to my brother. He always plays the victim. I love to do the evil laugh. My brother stumbles into a tent made from plastic chairs and a faux fur blanket. Nobody knows I am the villain because when I snap my fingers, I turn into a teacup or a wooden chair painted red. Okay, I want to check on the time too. I think I have a bit more time. Thank you all so much for being here. It's so strange. Victoria and I were just talking about like, you know, what it's like to have a first book come out. So I'm really grateful that we can connect this way and just be online together and keep each other company as we do social distancing. So yeah, I hope that all of you are safe at home. I'm gonna read 2 more poems. So I'm gonna read Here Is Your Name. It's the very last poem in the book, and also very special to me because it evokes my family and my cousins especially. So in case they're listening, this is for you. Here is your name. Here's where you first wrote your name, next to your brother, writing his name, next to your mother and your father, who both have their own names. Here's your family watching you, trying to write your name, you erasing, the new eraser whittled down. Here's a composition paper shifting underneath your left hand, your right hand striking out, and your brother yawning. Here are your hands awake in the middle of the night. Your fingers turn on the lamp, your whole hand wrapped around a pencil, nobody hovering over you, the pencil crossing out the page, the zigzag of an M upright, not sideways from mama, ma, sremol, mingtuy, bang moliden, muki and Mikey, M, like how your mother says, don't call me Matt, call me Mai, like how your brother and you play mother, may I. Here's a side of the white leather sofa where you wrote your name in pen when guests were in the living room. Here's you writing your brother's name next to yours as he played outside with friends. Here are the guests telling your father on you, your father at the dinner table saying, repeat after me, Zapia Sam Kabat. Here's a spoon, fork, and knife to eat your mother's go. Here's you saying spoon, fork, and knife instead of what your father said. Here are your brother's insides shaking and you cracking up with him. Here's your father clearing his plate and leaving the room. Here's you at the table after listening to the radio singing, bad, 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 bad boy, you make me feel so good. Your father asking, huh, Tamite? You saying, it's a song, Dad. Here are his lips tightening and the go to your room and you going or else the orange fly swatter. Here's your brother whining, Mom, I'm thirsty. Your mother sitting in the driver's seat in July, you and your brother in the back seat. Here's your mother without any water in the stranded car. Here's your mouth half full of saliva and a tap tap on your brother's shoulder to help. Here's your brother saying, that's not water, that's spit. Here's your brother climbing the backyard maple on the highest branch, reaching for the highest twig because the neighborhood kids dared him. And here's you on the patio telling him, come down now. Here's your brother backing down, branch by branch. Here you are, afraid you will fall, your brother pushing himself up the temple. You are following your brother up the temple until both of you sit at the top, out of breath above the land, the window breezing through you, everything dirt and green. Here's your brother pointing at the salamander that scurried across the ceiling, your brother sweating on the trail to the zoo where the monkeys chased him for his bag of peanuts. The photo of you and your brother resting on the steps of Angkor Wat, both of you looking down at your mother's sun hat, your father's shades. Here your brother asked to drink your water, and though you said yes, you slapped the bottle out of his hand. Your brother will not go back. And here you are, back again. Your relatives ask, where is your brother? You say, he's coming next time, but he's still up there in that tree. And here you are still writing your name and your brother's name, now your mother's and father's names, as though writing them might make your names true. One more poem. ABC for Refugees. Cherubby D, how does a man who doesn't read English well know that cherubby dum, those aren't really words, BD, but birds. Cherubby dum, he stumbles, reading to me by the sliding glass door, Cherubby D, through which I watch my brother play in the dum-dum yard. Cherubby dum, like how my father says, fine then, leave. My mother shouts, stupid, dumb. We live in a small BD nest too, one hallway to be dumb slam doors. Birds? What are birds? Thanks to my father reading with me, I have more feathers. THE, first word he ever taught me to pluck. It is a word used all the time. Cherub, be dum, the mail, the mailbox, the school bus, the. He asked me to read the mail, not birds, mail. If you don't read this, you will turn into birds. And I read it to him the best I can. The end. A feather, two feathers, the end. Mother, mother, repeat after me. Cherubidi, cherubidum. We read together before bedtime. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Monica. That was great. If you have a question for either of our poets, please use the Ask a Question button below. It's right below the green button. You can submit your question there, and we'll just have a brief Q&A here. Or I have like a ton of questions here, so we can go to me as well. But our first question is from April. They ask, to both poets, how do you know when a poem is finished being written?
I'm gonna let you
Victoria, you can start with
Okay, I'm not muted anymore, right? Yeah. You know, I used to actually, when I first started writing, I never knew when a poem was finished, and worse, even worse, I never knew when a book was finished and or manuscript. And you know, it was just not knowing, really having confidence. And I had friends who were always telling me, yeah, I'm done with this manuscript. And I just wanted to strangle them because I was like, oh, how do you know? And I had the same question. And I think it's a matter of, now I know. I think it's a matter of gaining confidence as a writer and learning what that means by reading a lot of finished books. Right? Books they're never finished. And you can apply the quote to the book as well. And it's usually to the poem, but they're just abandoned. And so when I was first writing, I think I knew they were finished when I kind of moved on, you know. And then also a lot of times for books, I felt like it was when it was taken or when someone would accept it for publication. So I kind of used those arbitrary measures to cheat myself out of having to learn that on my own. And I think that only recently, maybe in the last 5 years or so, can I speak with a lot more confidence about my own writing, where it's at, you know, what needs more work. And I just think that comes with a lot of experience and reading.
Yeah, thank you for that question, April. And hi, April. I think I met you in Houston, right? So thank you for being here. I actually, you know, I think my process is very slow. So when I have drafted a poem, I'll like type it up and maybe I'll put it away for many, many months. Then I'll go back and I'll look at it when I have a different, you know, just a different perspective on the poem. And maybe I'll just add a few more things, or I'll just like look at it and I'll just like let it sit with me and I'll think, oh, it's not really there yet, you know? And I think what I'm looking for is to see which parts of the poem are still resonant with me, or if the draft is even resonant at all. So I think that's really important. You know, I think a poem is finished when, you know, when it feels resonant. So much of it is already in process. And I agree with Victoria, like I feel like you just kind of abandon a poem too, but like ABC for Refugees took like 6 years to really complete. And I had like the cherubidum repetition, but the title at the time was called Reading, because it was about my father teaching me how to read in English. And I needed to really understand like what that experience was like, you know, to have to learn English to survive in a country where my parents don't necessarily speak as fluently. So yeah, I think it depends, you know, like what you're writing about, how much time it takes to heal sometimes, or how much time it really takes to understand every angle. So yeah, I think that I'm satisfied when the poem just feels resonant. But I like to make sure that all of the muscles of language are being used in the poem, to whatever capacity needs to be used. So I hope that answers the question. I feel like I can go on and on about when a poem is finished, but it's never really finished, as Victoria said. And as for books, like I feel like I held on to this book for a long time. Like even if it was accepted, I was like, no, wait, just let me push the deadline a little bit. I had to work on this one poem, and I had to break some poems open, like Americans Dancing in the Heart of Darkness. I didn't read it today, but like that poem was very small, but I realized that I needed to actually let it grow. And so there are like much longer lines, and there is more peopled, so I think the poems in my book, Nailed the Evening Hangs On, just kind of psychically took over, and I needed to take time to do that. Yeah.
Monica, your bookshelf was displayed in the background there. So Lily wants to know, what books do you have featured on your bookshelf? And Victoria, while we can't see your bookshelf, we'd like to know what's featured on your shelf as well.
My bookshelf has a couple of books. Let's see. I have been reading Tracing the Horse by Diana Miri Delgado. I love this book. I love this poet. She's a dear friend of mine, so totally recommend it. I really love her poetry. I was just reading it last night. And then I also have this wonderful book by Jake Skeets called Eyes Bottle Dark with the Mouth Full of Flowers. And it's an incredible book as well, from Milkweed. And I don't know. I always seem to have like Eduardo Corral's Slow Lightning with me, and I haven't gotten the second book yet, but I'm really excited for that to come out. And then of course I have Morgan Parker's Magical Negro as well. So highly recommend all of these books. And please support poets at this time.
I have so many books.
Yeah, I know.
I'm looking on the ground because they're stacked everywhere. They're everywhere, but I'll just pull a few that are just kind of around. This new one is Sweet. Wait, I can't read backwards. Summer Snow by Robert Hess. That's a new one. I also have. I've been reading this really cool book. I bought it used, and it's from the Kenosha Public Library. I have no idea what state that's in, but it's called The Book of Things by Alice Steger, translated by Brian Henry. It's phenomenal. I'm kind of surprised I missed this in 2001. And when you buy used books, you see that sometimes there's signs from,
nice.
I guess Alice is from Slovenia. I have so many books everywhere. They're everywhere. I have Merwin lying around. I have a whole bunch of new books. I have Eduardo's new book.
Yeah.
Ross Gay's new book. There, I have all the new books. They're all sitting around, and I've been reading a lot of them. So, I have a ton of books. I'm always reading for the a couple juries that I'm on. So it's a little bit more of a chore. So I'm reading a lot these days.
That's awesome.
And just a quick follow-up on that, just because it's been interesting to see people's like tastes have kind of changed in the pandemic. Even my tastes about what I'm drawn to right now as I'm home more have changed. Have you found yourself being drawn to a certain genre more than others while you're home more?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been reading more older things too. Reading more like Merwin and Transtromer and Mary Oliver, even poets I never used to read as much in terms of Oliver. And then, I'm having more trouble reading prose. So I have to read a lot of prose for a particular committee I'm sitting on. And I'm just having a lot of difficulty reading prose because it's online and through PDFs now because there's not a lot of mail. I did read Natasha Trethewey's new prose book. I think it's called Memorial Way, but it's a memoir, and I finished that whole book and I really enjoyed it. So I think it's just reading things that maybe resonate in different ways and reading less sort of new things, if that makes sense.
I think that I struggle a lot to read right now. I think part of that is because reading requires you to just really be connected to an emotional language, or you develop a relationship to a character. And sometimes you just, obviously you reflect on your own experiences and how you relate to these characters and these people. And so I find it difficult sometimes to really give my attention and energy in that way, because there's so much that's happening in the world, and very painful. I have been reading Minor Feelings by Kathy Park Hong, and that has been a really affirming read. And, I had to also put the book down a little bit too, because it was also just really heavy, but I felt very seen as an Asian American woman. And I have to finish it still, but I'm very slow at reading too, as well as my writing. But I have found a lot of comfort in just talking about poetry with friends, and listening to poetry. I find myself, like, outside of like reading and literary genres, like I'm also just really drawn to like podcasts too. I really love Brene Brown, who is a vulnerability researcher, and she has this podcast called Unlocking Us. And so that has been very helpful for me as well during this time. So, yeah.
Now, Monica, I knew we were going to get one of these questions. So Cher asked, did you find Lancaster to be a welcoming community?
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I was born and raised there, and yes, it's very welcoming. I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's kind of an interesting question, because I mean, I grew up there, and I felt like when I lived in other cities like DC or in New York City, and currently I live in Oakland, California. Everyone's different, and all these cities are very, very different. But when I lived in New York City, I just remember like going to like the bodega, and I would just be like, hi, how are you, to like the cashier, or like, and it's just like there's so many people in line, like they don't want to make small talk and stuff like that. But that's not like, I'm not speaking for all of New York City, but I'm just saying that like I think I was looked at kind of weird, because I would really be cordial and very kind, and I would, say thank you, have a great day, like, and I think that I carry this, I carry Lancaster with me everywhere I've been. And so, yeah, I think that like when I go home, that feels very familiar to me, So, yeah, and I mean, Alex just reminded me that I say Lancaster correctly, which is hilarious, because people will say Lancaster, and I'm like, no, I'm from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Yeah. So I just forgot, like it's so ingrained, But yeah, I every time I have gone home, like over the holidays to visit my parents, and just to spend time with family, I'm just reminded of this like beautiful, quaint town that I have grown up in, and I'm very grateful for that. Like I have been really keeping to myself during this time, and I will take walks around my neighborhood in Oakland, and those neighborhood walks remind me of like my childhood, because I would often take walks around my development, and I'd pass all these cornfields, and it was just like I feel like a child again as I'm walking. And sometimes I think, oh my goodness, I can't believe that I'm not a child anymore, and I think that way because so much of this time actually reminds me of what it felt like to be a child. Like I would spend so much time outdoors, and I would like ride my bike everywhere, and that's what I'm doing here too. So it's a very interesting thing to have like these kinds of memories evoked. So thanks for that question.
Yeah. Victoria,
I wanted to ask Victoria, have you ever been to Lancaster?
No, I've never been to Lancaster. Did I? No, that's not right. Lancaster?
No, that's good.
You kind of said it. I could say that you're from there.
Okay, we've got some really good questions here. Victoria, we're gonna go to you for this one. This one was from Lisa in the group chat. They say they'd like to hear more from Victoria about switching between free verse and different forms of poetry. And can she recommend any other form poets she enjoys reading?
Yeah.
She be you.
Yeah, that's and I love form as a way to break open creativity, and it feels like you'd restrain yourself, like I always tell people, but you actually, I think Terrence Hayes described it as being a bird in a cage. And so I'm always putting new restrictions on myself because, you know, with syllabics, for example, if you're writing a tanka, I'm super excited. I'm like, oh yeah, I love that line. And then you can't keep it because it doesn't fit syllables. And so it forces you to sort of think, go down different paths that you may not have originally considered. And for me, that's super fun. So yeah, I like it. And the older I get, the more I like it. I don't know what that means. But I think I'm just trying to do new things, and I love playing. So I think of writing is playing. I love how slow Monica is at reading and writing because I love how we're opposites. I rush through everything. Ever since I was a child, my parents, everything is too fast. Rush, rush, rush. I read really fast. Like I can read a page instantaneously. I write too quickly, and then I edit more slowly. But I'm just like a hummingbird, and I wish I could be more like you. But I do love how we're opposites in that way. Other form poets, oh my gosh, there's so many. Terrence, because we were talking about him, I wrote a great book on sonnets. They're sort of not like formal sonnets, but I think there's a lot of form to his work. I feel like that I like reading his work for that form. The book I just mentioned is A Book of Things. The Book of Things is all in form. There are The Essential Haiku is on my desk, edited by Robert Hass. Who else writes in form? Like formal poets. Joshua Mehigan is one, Mehigan. Yeah, so I could name more probably if I had more time to think about it. But yeah, for me, it's like finding the form and the vessel is a part of the process of writing. So that's important to me. But I don't think it much as swinging back and forth is more so like not being me, because like me is strong. And so if I can get myself out of the way and let the poem sort of grab me and take hold of me, then I'm happier that way. So form functions in that way for me.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. This next question is from Yuthana. They say, what is the most unexpected thing writing has given you, and where do you see it taking you in the future? Monica, we can start with you.
That's a question from my cousin. Hi, Yuthana.
They said, hi, Victoria, and hi, Queen, which I was not going to read, but
well, Victoria's a queen too. And
that's right.
I love that you called yourself a hummingbird. I mean, I love that. I love how fast, you move as well. There's such a beauty in that too. I will see hummingbirds in the neighborhood too when I go for my walks. And so, yeah, I love that. So what is the most unexpected thing writing has given me, and where do I see it taking me in the future? I just think that like this whole thing is unexpected. This entire life of poetry has been really unexpected. I thought that I was going to, be in the foreign service. I just loved learning languages and loved history and loved to travel and wanted to see the world. And I think that poetry has just in general been the unexpected thing. It's been the most affirming force in my life. And it has been a thing that has created space for me to be myself when I'm not welcomed, in say academia, for example, or just as a woman of color, or just as a woman in a room full of men, as a Cambodian woman in like the Asian American narratives, experiences. So I think that, poetry has taken me really far in my life, and I'm so grateful that it's brought me to California now, where I can connect with other Cambodians. And, it also really did help me build my community of Cambodian Americans and also Cambodians in Cambodia, which has been incredible. I think that, I think that has actually been the most unexpected thing, is having my poetry take me to Cambodia and connecting with people in like my parents' native language, and not being fluent in Khmer, but then being able to still connect with Khmer brothers and sisters. And that's been incredible for me. And I actually really hope that, what I hope to do next, if I can answer the question in this way, is I really hope to learn more Khmer. Like a really dear friend of mine passed away from COVID recently. Her name is Khmer Rouge, and I was, learning how to say my condolences in Khmer. And I want to learn Khmer just so I can speak respectfully about death, not only for that reason, but it's such a incredible poetic language. Poetry is embedded in Khmer, and I really want to learn the forms. So yeah, we'll see if I can continue my studies at some point in Cambodia. So thanks for that question, cousin. Yeah, give it to Victoria now. Queen Hummingbird.
It was actually Hey Queen, right? Was it Hey Queen or Hey Queen? Yeah, no, wow, that's a hard question, but thanks for asking it. I think, I'm a lot older than Monica, so I feel like I should have a better way of answering this. But I think that poetry for me has helped me in some ways sort of understand myself and be in better touch with my own personhood and selfhood and emotions. And I think I'm a much deeper person and broader person than I ever gave myself credit for. And it's so easy, I think, in this culture to go down the path of capitalism and certain expectations of the culture and money and those kinds of things. And I feel like that's such an easy thing to do for all of us. And I was on that path. And so for me to be here writing poetry and on here talking with you about poetry is just such a large surprise to me. And I think it's made me a better person and a better human being. And I do think it's also allowed me to connect with other people like all of you who are sitting here with us in ways that I never could have imagined, because I'm not particularly good at connecting with people, I think, beyond the surface and super, just socially. And so I feel like poetry has been a way for me to be vulnerable in ways that I'm not comfortable as a human, physical human. And that in that way, I feel like I can connect with you all in ways that I never could have otherwise. So yeah, I think that's a really cool thing, to live a rich life that's in depth and really, appreciating what we're all made of and trying to understand what that means existentially has been a big surprise for me.
This next question is from, I believe this is a very good friend of the bookstore, Tyler. He asks, Victoria, it seems like poems from Obit borrow or at least refer to the form of obituaries. Have you written other poems that take the forms of artifacts? And Monica, have you written poems that adopt forms in this way?
Hi, I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe. No, I think this was the first time I've ever done that. And I think it was just my yearning to not write the elegy. And elegies are great. I've read a ton of them. There's so many beautiful ones, but for me, I just didn't feel like I could write an elegy better than anyone else had written an elegy. And so I think finding that form was a new way to sort of break my own fears about not being able to write an elegy. And in some ways, I'm a Lego person. I think of poems as messing around with pieces and building and breaking. And so I think in general, I really like to mess around with words and form and things like that. And so I think that's just what I do naturally. And it wasn't until I found that form or thought of that form did I think I could actually even begin to broach the topics that related to my mother's sickness and death.
I have a poem called Self-Portrait as War Museum Captions. And this was during my trip to Cambodia in 2016. And I'm just thinking back to the day that I was at that war museum and how jarring it felt to witness all of these photographs of Khmer Rouge soldiers taking over Phnom Penh, and then seeing the same caption underneath all of these different photographs. And it was just that description, like, you know, they're taking over the city. And so in this particular poem, which I've actually never read out loud, because I think it's kind of a strange, I just haven't done it yet. You know, maybe I'll try to do that for the next virtual event. But yeah, you know, I describe my entire journey throughout the museum, and just kind of taking these kind of snapshots of myself. And it begins with like a daughter of survivors stands in the grass among tattered military tanks, you know, and then it just takes you through each portion of that visit. So I think that that's maybe similar, you know, I think that answers the question, but I mean, I haven't like undertaken any kind of project that has focused on like one form. And, you know, I think that I don't know if I would speak about erasures as a form, but I think that I can. I just haven't studied as much, and I haven't done them as much as other poets I admire have done erasures. But that's something that I am interested in doing. I have a book called Ankorwat. It's spelled Ankorwat, and it's by Allen Ginsberg. And that was published in 1968 by Fulcrum Press. And I'm really interested in doing an erasure of that poem. And so that's something I'm exploring now, but it's also, again, like something I put away for a while, and I'm trying to revisit that again during this time. But another form in general that I'm interested in is the sestina. I really like sestinas. I really enjoy writing them. Yeah, they're really fun, you know, and I have like a broken kind of sestina in the book. And yeah, I've written a few more since then. And so I have been writing poems in the last couple of months, and I'm excited about the new work that I have coming. But yeah, they're just sitting right now, and I'm really excited about that. Yeah.
So we have two more questions here, and then I'd like to ask each of you if it's okay to read one more poem as we wrap up. So we'll go to two more questions. Then if you each want to think about maybe one more poem you want to read at the end. This next question is from Kate. They asked, they know Victoria has written essays, so they're wondering what elements of poetry, Victoria, that you carry over to creative nonfiction writing.
Oh, everything. Yeah, I always tell prose writers to take poetry classes, because prose by poets, it's just the best, because we have other tools that we look at, and sonically, you know, we've been studying how words go together. I mean, I think prose writers can do this too, but sit and stare and move a comma or two and call it a day. And so I think that I do think that everything that I've learned in poetry applies to prose. And yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit narratively challenged. And so I do think that's what I've been working on in my fiction for children, you know, middle grade novels I write, and then also some of the creative nonfiction. But I'm also not as wed to things going linearly, because I'm not very linear. So I do think everything it just goes straight into the prose. And yeah, that's the only thing I have to say. Yeah, nothing else to say.
And we've got one final question here. This question's from Cherry. They say, we touched a little bit about this, but what are books that you keep going back to that you need to keep close to you?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, yeah, I can answer that question. Thank you, Cherry. Hi, Cherry. I have kept Cruelty / Killing Floor close to me. Yeah, there's something just about her poetry that I need to read it. You know, I need to look at, you know, I think it's called 21 Years of Marriage. Like, I really love that poem. Yeah, all of the personas really teach me how to get really close to, like, just a psychological landscape that I'm trying to also develop in my own poetry. So I really love the poet AI. And I love June Jordan. I always go back to her poetry as well, because when I first read her Directed by Desire, like I always kept going back to those poems because I felt like I could actually expand and be myself, and just be very expensive, you know. I think I was really intimidated by very formal poetry when I was starting out. I appreciate the formalists, but I think June Jordan's like free verse and her political poetry just really encouraged me to say everything and to think that everything I was going to write was important. Like not everything is I write is important. Like I write really bad poems too, and they're really bad drafts that nobody will ever see. But I was able to understand that, oh, I can actually grow these poems and say everything and allow people to get really close to me and allow people to be really intimate with my poetry and also my life, you know, at least a picture of my life. So there's that. And I know I feel like every time I'm asked this question, I always kind of like trip a little bit, but I love Yusuf Komunyaka's poetry as well. All of his works are important to me. And also Sharon Odes. I have odes with me. And I think that reading that really helped me write some of the work that I have in my first book too. And I love her first book, Satan Says, as well. So yeah, I keep those works close to me, but there are so many that I also keep close to me. Aras Elise Gourmet is a poet I always go back to. So I love her first book, Teeth. So yeah, thanks for that question.
Victoria?
Yeah, I love Virginia Woolf. I keep the waves close by at all times for whatever reason. I love Elizabeth Bishop. There are about 12 poems or so that I could read over and over and over again, and they're just perfect. I love Leon Lee's early poetry. Bridget P. Jean Kelly, Song is a great book. Louise Glick is seminal, to my development as a poet. Joy Graham is seminal. I love Larry Levis. I love Yusuf Komunyaka's poems as well. Pretty much everyone Monica mentioned.
Same. Yeah, same with you, Victoria. I love all those poems you mentioned.
So many. And there's so many new poets like Monica, Kaveh Akbar, Dennis Smith. There are a ton of new writers that I find give me so much inspiration, too, and Natalie Diaz, obviously. And yeah, it's just fun. We could do this all day, so I should stop.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Can we do one final poem from each of you? Do we want to start, Monica? Do we want to start with you?
Yeah, of course. I'm going to read you a poem. So I'm going to read a poem by the poet Paul Tran because it is their birthday today, and I wanted to honor that as well. And so I'm going to read. Let's see. I'm just going to pull it up if you don't mind. This poem is called Galileo by Paul Tran. I thought I could stop time by taking apart the clock. Minute hand, hour hand, nothing can keep. Nothing is kept, only kept track of. I felt passing seconds accumulate like dead calves in a thunderstorm of the mind, no longer a mind, but a page torn from the dictionary with a definition of self effaced. I couldn't face it. The world moving on as if nothing happened. Everyone I knew got up, got dressed, went to work, went home. There were parties, ecstasy, Hennessy, dancing around each other, bluntness, blunts rolled to keep thought after thought from roiling like wind across water, coercing shapelessness into shape. I put on my best face. I was glamour, I was grammar, yet my best couldn't best my beast. I too had been taken apart. I didn't want to be fixed. I wanted everything dismantled and useless like me. Case, wheel, hands, dial, face.
It's beautiful. I love all the sound play in that.
I know. I love that poem by Paul Tran. So
That's so good.
yeah, look out for their work.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm just going to read, I'll just read one obit. It's the last obit in this book. And it's the only poem that I wrote later, I think, towards a prompt. So terrain.org is a great literary journal that does this Dear America series. And they actually have an anthology out right now called Dear America, somewhere in here. And they asked me to write an obit for America. So, and I hate writing towards prompts, as I always say, despite just giving them out all the time. So it's America. America died on February 14, 2018, and my dead mother doesn't know. Since her death, America has died a series of small deaths, each one less precise than the next. My tears are now shaped like hooks, but my heart is damp still. If it is lucky, it is in the middle of its beats. The unlucky dead children hold telegrams they must hand to a woman at a desk. The woman will collect their belongings in shadows. My dead mother asks each of these children if they know me, have seen me, how tall my children are now. They will tell her that they once lived in Florida, not California. She will see the child with a hole in his head. She will blow the dreams out of the hole like dust. I used to think death was a kind of anesthesia. Now I imagine long lines, my mother taking in all the children. I imagine her touching their hair, how she might tickle their knees to make them laugh. The dead hold the other half of our ticket. The dead are an image of wind, and when they comb their hair, our trees rustle.
All right. Monica Sok, Victoria Chang, thank you so much for joining us here in virtual Harrisburg. Their new books right here are available for purchase. Click the green button below, everyone. Support small presses, support these authors. Thank you again for coming out. Thanks to all our viewers for coming out. When this whole thing dies down, we would love to have both of you at the store. I got a request from Marsha in the group chat. I saw her. Monica, whenever you're in Lancaster, you got to come visit the store.
Thank you.
But thanks again, everyone, for coming out. And I'll give you the last word.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Victoria. I loved hearing your poetry. So
yeah,
stay safe and healthy, everyone.
Yeah, I had a really good time. Thanks. And please support them. You don't have to buy our books necessarily, just buy something. So help them. They need your support. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Midtown Scholars. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. All right, everyone, stay safe. See you guys.
Same. Bye. Take care.